All right, so we're now at the Debian package management portion of Module 102. And Debian is a different system, of course, for Linux, and it uses a different package management system compared to Ubuntu and Red Hat and Fedora and so on. But you need to know a little bit about both for the exam. So let's have a look at some of the commands. We have a dpackage reconfigure command, apt-get. We'll look at a bunch of different apt commands, and also the aptitude command. And knowing a little bit about what packages you have installed, some of the details about what files they use, and so on. These are some of the things that you need to know about. So in the old days, source code had to be compiled, and it was a little bit messy, a little bit difficult. So package management systems came along with Linux that made life a lot easier. The Debian tools being around perhaps a little bit longer than some of the tools for Fedora and Red Hat. But we can see that Debian distros use .deb files or .package files if you're using the dpackage commands. And for Fedora, Red Hat, and Red Hat Enterprise Linux and SUSE, we use RPM and Yum. So we'll cover those separately in a different section. But what I've done in the meantime is installed Debian Linux. And the process is very similar to what we saw with CentOS. So I'm not going to go through the overall process. One thing I would like to point out, though, is if you're going to be building your own distribution and you go to debian.org, what I did was chose the network install and chose i386 because I have an Intel system. And this downloads a fairly small installer, and then it does everything else over the network. So as long as you have an internet connection for your physical machine or your virtual machine, this is an easy way to get yourself going. And I have a desktop installed, of course, and I've just set up a shell. Let's make that a little bit larger. There we go. So I can run the dpackage command by itself with the -L, and this will show me all of my packages, all my installed packages. So I'm doing a list. Got a nice little bit of detail there. Quite a few packages to look at, of course. And one of the, let's run help real quick. We can see that I've got a -I for install, -R for remove, fairly straightforward. And then I can do other things, as I just showed a minute ago. Listing packages, as we see here, listing the files that are part of the package. So for instance, I could see if I can find it. So I installed Nmap earlier, and what I did was just ran a dpackage -L to list the files that are part of Nmap. And it's pretty simple to install a package or remove a package. So we'll cover some of these options here in just a moment. So -I for install, as I mentioned, -R for remove. I can look at the contents of a package. I can also reconfigure one if it's been installed and needs some additional actions. Now the repositories are contained in your sources.list file. So let's have a look at that. And it defines just a handful to get me started. Actually 6 different ones. Probably don't need to modify this too much unless you are looking for packages that are not in those repositories for some reason, but that might be a little bit unusual for that to happen. So I installed, just to show how easy this is, I installed nmap, but I can also just as easily remove it. And installing just as simple to go back. And you'll notice that this is very similar to the process for using the yum commands, and we'll see that here in just a moment. Anyway, so for the installation, I need to specify where the package actually is. So I'm going to do a quick find command. There's where the package was cached. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this. And now I can do the install. So unlike yum is a little bit more friendly as far as, you know, assuming that if I type nmap that it's going to go try to find the package, and then nmap dpackage might be a little bit more picky, and I've got to specify the exact physical or the absolute path to the .deb file to do the install. But now it's installed. And we can also look at some of the commands for apt. Aptitude also lets you have a more like a yum style interface to apt, but I can use apt get, for instance, apt remove, and also do updates and upgrades of my packages. So let's have a look at some of these commands. So I'm going to go ahead and remove nmap. Pretty simple. It asks me if I want to continue. It tells me some of the things that it'll be doing, and we're done. Just as easily, I can do an apt get install of nmap. And I'm just using nmap because it's something simple to, it's very small too. So the package installs are very quick. And I can now run a nmap scan of my local host because the software is there, ready to go. I can also run the apt get upgrade or update, sorry. Now, if you run this without any arguments, it looks for updates for all of your packages. So I might stop this from running, but this, oh, actually that finished pretty quickly. So I guess the updates, or the package I just downloaded today was fairly well updated already, and there hasn't been much change. But you can run that on a global basis or on a per package basis. Now I can also run dpackage commands to see what kind of files are involved with a particular package. So for instance, I can run dpackage -S to look at a particular file, or run -L to list the files that are inside of a package. And I think I actually did that already with nmap, but let's run through that really quick. So dpackage -S, and I think nmap is in bin. Can't type today. No, it's not. I'll do a find for this file because it's not in my current search path. User bin, okay, my mistake. So let's run this again. Up arrow. There we go. So it's telling me that the package that installed this file is the package called nmap. And then if I run a, -L command, -L, when I do this, see, I just made a mistake there. You specify just the package name, not the absolute path to it. And so these are all the files that are part of the nmap install. So even though there's a lot of things there, they're all fairly small, and that's why the install goes so quickly. It's a good one to look at. Now back to our searching. There are two websites you can look at, Ubuntu packages and Debian packages. So you can do a search there. It's a pretty useful search tool. And we also have the Debian facility for looking for packages. You can do the searches from the command line as well, but you might want to do some research on a website, so it's nice to know that that's available. We also have a couple more already displayed or demonstrated -s, but we also have the dash contents, which is very similar to what I was just doing with dpackage-l. And let me find that map, nmap. There we go. Wanted to get the full path name for this. So if I type -- contents, now it tells me specifically each individual file with its file size, timestamp, who owns it, and so on. That's a lot more detail, but I might need that in certain cases. I can also use Debian commands to do searches. So I can search the package cache, which we know should contain information about nmap. So I looked in my cached packages, and I've got several references. This is the one that we're actually working with just recently, but there's also other things like ZenMap, the GUI front end for this, and some other pieces like Python modules, for instance, that might interface with nmap. So it gives me a way to find all those things in one easy to use command line tool. So make sure you practice with these commands and get familiar with using dpackage and apt-get. So we covered several commands here. We looked at our list of repositories, the dpackage commands, and apt-get commands. Aptitude is also another option. And as I mentioned, this is very similar to, maybe I don't have it installed. Let's look here. If I could type. All right, so I did an apt-get install aptitude, and it comes back and tells me that, just trying to highlight exactly what happened there. I should have cleared the screen first. It's a little easier to see what you're doing. But it's telling me that I was able to go out and find all the different pieces of the aptitude package. So I'll say I want to continue, yes. And it's going to go ahead and install that. And if I run it without any arguments, it just gives me the nice interactive menu. Tells me, for instance, I can just hit enter, move around with my cursor, and see all these different details about my environment. And I can hit the right arrow to open up one of these subcategories. So it's definitely a lot easier to deal with than the traditional approach of using the command line. And I can just click on these different menus like any other kind of application, and that gives me a little bit of extra functionality. So I'm going to go ahead and quit. Let's send that to more. So this will look pretty familiar once we start looking at Yum, but I've got install, remove commands. So they make this a little bit more user-friendly by just giving you more plain English commands to run. I can do my searches. I can reinstall something. So typical options that you'd expect to find. And the ease of use might be more enticing for certain folks. Either way, you should know a little bit about it when you're getting ready to study for the exam. So play around with aptitude a little bit. And that's kind of one of the things with Linux, is that there's so many different options for dealing with packages. Depending on which flavor or which distribution you're running, you've got to know the appropriate tools for that particular situation. Okay, so that ends our Debian package management. Next, we'll take a look at RPM and Yum. Thank you.